the Jews. Here's my point. During the time of the World Trade Center, you've seen every funeral be covered for everybody. You've not seen one Jewish funeral covered on the media because no Jews died in the World Trade Center.
You mean to tell me, that every single Jew in the World Trade Center knew about it beforehand, and not one of them would have said anything? Because you are saying two things.
Not saying that. We're saying they didn't go to work. They didn't go to work.
That's a fact.
It was hard to believe that here in New York City, people were talking about this tragedy at Ground Zero and repeating the same story over and over about the Jews and 9/11. One night I was in a cab with a young Egyptian driver, and he said the same thing. You know, the Jews were warned, no Jews died. I said, wait a second. He seemed like a bright young guy. You don't believe this stuff, do you? And he turned around and he said, it's all written. It's all in a book. It was written 100 years ago. Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Protocol number 11. God has given us, his chosen people, the power to scatter, and what to all appears to be our weakness has proved to be our strength, and has now brought us to the threshold of universal rule. It is clear, therefore, that nature herself intended us to rule and guide the world.
Come on down here, I want to show you. My father has urbanized his suburban paradise. Very unusual for the Maplewood suburban look.
The cops came here and said, why didn't you call us? We would have caught the guy. And I said, you're a little late. He left. It was my grandson. And the cop couldn't quite figure that out. I said, well, he's a New York kid. And
I started my filmmaking career when I was a teenager in suburban Jersey, following in my father's footsteps. And when I grew up, I didn't really know any anti-Semitism. Yeah, there was a country club or two that we couldn't get into, but that was no big deal. Now, for my parents who came of age in the 30s, it was a whole other world, which is why I wanted my father to be part of this journey.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to go up to the attic and find where I think I have hidden the secret archives.
I grew up thinking of myself as an all-American kid. I didn't really think much about the world until I was 13 and John F. Kennedy was assassinated. From the moment it occurred, I became consumed with trying to find out what really happened and whether there was a conspiracy.
Got it. Found it. Here is the Life magazine.
I collected every newspaper and magazine article that came out in the days following the Kennedy assassination.
Here is my penthouse. Lee Harvey Oswald was innocent. A combination of my two main obsessions.
It was only 10 weeks after the Kennedy assassination that I was bar mitzvahed. I have to admit, I didn't really think much about what it meant to be a Jewish American. And I certainly didn't think about being initiated into the secret Jewish world conspiracy. Years later, when I finally read the protocols, I thought it was a joke. It was like a comic book. I couldn't believe people took it seriously. Now it's available on CDs and audio tapes.
By recording it on cassette tape, we make it available for private and public use. What you're about to hear is the most diabolical plot ever uncovered. Protocol number 1. It must be remembered that people with base instincts are more numerous than those with noble ones. Therefore, the best results in governing are achieved through violence and intimidation.
I want to know if anyone has ever heard of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. You never heard of it?
Some have called it the mother of all conspiracy theories. It claims to be the minutes of a secret meeting of Jews at the end of the 19th century who were plotting to take over the world.
Do you have that book, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion? Sold out? He sold out the Protocols.
Yeah.
It's a hot seller.
Why do you think it's such a hot seller?
People buying that crazy.
You could even buy it at Walmart. Why had the protocols reemerged since 9/11?
If you actually buy into this conspiracy theory, all roads lead to the Elders of Zion. It's a book that was written in the late 1800s in Russia. It's a book that's been debunked half a dozen times, going back to 1921 by the Times of London, no less. But it's a lie that won't die.
The Protocols of Zion was probably fabricated sometime at the end of the 19th century by agents of the Russian Tsar's secret police. It was distributed around 1905 at the same time as a wave of pogroms against the Jews. When the Tsar was overthrown in 1917, the Communist Revolution was portrayed as the first step in the Protocol's plan of world conquest. In 1920, Henry Ford published them in the United States. If you bought a new Ford, you could also get a free copy. A few years later, Hitler incorporated them into Nazi ideology.
This is your updated protocols, right? You got here, and then you've got the Jewish mafias running America. That's the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. In case you don't get it, you can then click into the original in any one of 6 languages. And in the era that we live in, you have tragically people across the Middle East, whether it's through miniseries they view or an op-ed piece that they'll read, who actually look at the Protocols as a history book.
كما أن الإنسان يعلو الهيمنة كذلك اليهود هم أرفع من شعوب الأرض لأن نطفة الغرباء كنطفة الحمار المسيح المخلص ميسى لن يأتي ما لم تنقرض الشعوب غير اليهودية وتصبح السلطة من نصيب اليهودي.
Most of the stuff to the average person sounds nuts. We're all sort of, laugh at it. But the problem is no longer the lunatic fringe. The problem is a guy like Mahathir, probably the most successful, quote-unquote, moderate Muslim leader in the last quarter of a century. His speech essentially was a ripoff of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
The Europeans killed 6 million Jews out of 12 million. But today the Jews rule this world by proxy. They get others to fight and die for them. They invented socialism, communism, human rights, and democracy so that persecuting them would appear to be wrong, so they may enjoy equal rights with others. With these, they have now gained control of the most powerful countries, and they, this tiny community, have become a world power.
Mahathir, who for the first time in 60 years raises the level of anti-Semitism, here is a head of state believing that the door is wide open, that he can stand up in front of the international community and say what Hitler said.
The characterization of Jews in the Nazi era was subhuman, vermin, the pollutants of the pure Aryan race. Now, if you read this book, and this is my first reaction when I read this, was, wait a second. This isn't a book about vermin. This isn't a book about subhumans. This is a book about superhumans.
I never met a Jew myself.
You never met a Jew?
I never met a Jew, and I never met a Jew that said he knew what Judaism is.
Somebody in Nazi Germany thought they were real Jews, didn't they?
Well, I think somebody in America said that there was such a thing as a Holocaust. I have no evidence of that either, that there were 6 million Jews.
Are you saying that you dispute that there were even concentration camps where Jews and Gypsies and dissidents and communists were exterminated? Right. Are you saying those didn't exist and blacks, if they were there, would have been exterminated?
No, I didn't say that. They were concentration camps, not as many as they are here in America for black people.
See, Jews got killed. The pain was finished once they dead. They brought into a gas chamber and they were shot to death. Where black people, we came to this country, we got our ass kicked for years. There's a whole bunch of pain that was put on us for many years. So when you talk about Jews, yeah, I sympathize. Yeah, they did do a lot of foul things to the Jews. But when you gonna stop crying about that, like the way you tell us to stop crying about slavery?
It would seem to me like the Jews are mainly the ones that got everything all messed around.
You gotta understand something. This is Jumerica.
Well, let me ask you this, if that's true, the Saudi royal family and the Bush royal family have been in bed together for 40 years. Now, where are the Jews in that equation? I don't see them.
It's easy.
I don't see them. Where are they?
It's Pepsi. It's Pepsi.
Wait, Pepsi?
Yeah, it's Pepsi. They, every penny, support Israel. That's what it stands for. Don't you know 33 cents of every bottle of Pepsi you buy go to Israel?
All the people.
America is Jewish. Who's the mayor of this city?
Wait.
Who's the mayor of this city? Bloomberg.
Well, but what happened when Giuliani was mayor? What happened when Giuliani? He was mayor for 8 years.
Look at the word you say.
He's Jewish too?
Giuliani. Giuliani. That's exactly what you're saying. Giuliani. Okay?
It is hard to believe that 60 years after the tragedy of the Holocaust, anti-Semitism is once again rearing its head. But it is clear that we are witnessing an alarming resurgence of this phenomena in new forms and manifestations. Anti-Semitism has flourished even in communities where Jews have never lived, and it has been a harbinger of discrimination against others.
What's the latest? Well, we started a full offensive? Shock and awe? Really? Just Baghdad is under fire?
Big story in the Times I just clipped. French Jews tell of new and threatening wave of anti-Semitism.
Did you see this? Why Jews should oppose war on Iraq.
Sometimes there's an out-and-out accusation that if you take the view that I take and some others take towards Saddam Hussein, we are somehow motivated not by the best interests of the United States, but by Israel's best interests. It's a nasty line of argument.
There is also an undertone that says that these neoconservative hawks, that so many of them are Jewish.
I'll tell you, if you balance out the hawkish Jews against the dovish ones, we are badly outnumbered. Badly outnumbered.
Yeah, it does seem to be a lot of people out here. What about the idea that you actually can make a difference?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole idea of individual contributions, just think of it in our own lives, that the initial contribution comes from your parents bringing you up to be part of the collective, the commune, the action, detours, obstacles, potholes, but the launch in the beginning, if you got a good one, you're blessed. You're fortunate.
Well, I feel blessed that you and Mommy gave me a good one. But let me ask you this, as just a final wrap-up for this moment. Is it good for the Jews?
This war is shit for the Jews.
You think
and
that?
what's going on in Israel is shit for the Jews.
You know that a lot of the leading theorists and ideologues behind the plan for the Iraqi invasion are Jews.
I mean,
Colonel Wolfowitz, Crystal.
Here's my true opinion. As Jews, you're screwed no matter what side of it you're on. So you have to decide for yourself what feels right.
All my life I believed in the chants that I hear right now. All my life I've been part of that movement, part of this crowd. But I have to say that there is something since 9/11 in me that wonders, is there a time where violence and war is the only thing that is available, and do you have to then choose which side of the gang war you're on?
These people in the White House are happy this is happening because they all believe that we'll have Armageddon and then there'll be the rapture, the world will be destroyed, and these scumbags will go to heaven. I don't want to be in fucking heaven with these bastards. I'd rather go to fucking hell than be in heaven with fucking George Bush and Cheney. He's a scumbag, they're lowlifes.
The last place I'd want to be is in heaven with him. That would be hell.
For my ancestors, the real hell was in Eastern Europe, where Jews had been persecuted for hundreds of years. For my great-grandparents, like so many other immigrants, the promised land was America. They brought their Jewish heritage to New York, where my great-grandfather became a successful businessman and opened some of Brooklyn's first movie theaters. The family lore had it that my great-grandmother died in synagogue on Yom Kippur, which was a special blessing. This is 33 first and then 56.
Hitler came in 33, I think. This is printed in England.
When I first told you I was going to do something looking at this new anti-Semitism and the protocols, you said you don't know what you're messing with.
Oh,
what did you mean?
I don't want to talk about that because, you know, it's not a simple thing. You know, lives get snuffed out, people disappear, people are poisoned. They got to be careful. That's all I'm telling you. The rabbis warned the Jews all through history. Don't take on the powers that be in their religio-ideological disputes. You will say things that will provoke people, and you will bring bloodshed on the Jewish community. Then they come into the ghetto the next day, rape the women, smash everything, burn it. They're that angry. So don't do it.
Patterson, New Jersey, and we are going to talk to the publisher of an Arab American newspaper that in the months after 9/11 published the Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
The Arab Voice newspaper is where we're going, and we'll take it up now. We'll see what happens. Hi, Jeremy. How's everybody? Thank you. Hi. Can I come in? Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you for having us.
We write something here about Bush.
Mm-hmm.
Be united to fail this man in the next election.
Mm-hmm.
If I write it in the Arabic word about an Arabic ruler, they will shoot me in the street.
And what's the headline on this one?
That the Iraqis gave their citizenship to Mr. Bush.
Oh, that's funny.
I am a Palestinian. I left Palestine in 1948, and they kicked me out from my home. And anything happened to any Israeli that I said, that's good. If it's bad for them, I said, that's good. And in the same time, if something happened to the Palestinians which is bad, they will say, oh, that's good. This is your emotion. You can't take off your skin.
Now, you published the Protocols of Zion after 9/11. Explain what your thinking was.
I believe that it's fake and it's not true. That's the Protocols of the Zionists, which I publish it. The problem is, I don't write it. I just publish it to educate the people. And I was writing in the end of these protocols that these protocols are not true. When I publish it, there is a lot of problems happen to me here. You know, hundreds of calls here, somebody he want to kill me. I told them just wait till the protocols come to the end and you can see what I'm writing.
But it seems that there are a lot of people that do believe in the Muslim world that the Jews somehow secretly run the world.
I don't think that that hate, it's just from the Muslims. Many of the people in Europe and United States, they are believing that. And I think they are jealous of that.
You think they're jealous?
I know that they are jealous, and I believe that they are jealous because the Jews, they control everything.
وده اللي هعرفه لما انتهي بقية الكتاب. هما 24 بروتوكول. كنت السجليس قالت لي إن في جزء من البروتوكولات دي اتحقق. الخطة الصهيونية دي طبعا مرسومة بدقة عشان ينشروا بين شباب العالم المجون والخمور والفجور واللهو والفساد.
Ain't nobody wants to help us, you know. They always just like use stereotypes, you know what I'm saying? That's it, he's in the gutter, leave him in the gutter, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just tired of being stereotyped about him, you know what I mean? Zionist pigs.
When you say Zionist pigs, who are the Zionist pigs?
The Zionist pigs are all the Masons, you know what I'm saying, which is like President Bush, from George Washington to President Bush, they all Mason motherfuckers. They basically run the world.
In other words, why are we talking about the protocols and the Jews running the world? What about Skull and Bones and the Wasps? Who really has the power?
Yeah, white fucking Americans.
All right, well, that's my point. I'm not saying Jews don't have power and that they don't have influence. But if you think...
Who runs the Senate? Jews! Who's the House of Representatives? Jews! Jews got everything, bro!
White Anglo...
Motherfucker, dog!
the Jewish community, they stick together, you know what I'm saying? They all climb up each other's shoulders, they all help each other out. That's why they're so powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like, see, me and him, we're both Arabic Palestinian Americans, right? All right, boom, me and him say now, man, I got $1 million, right? He's doing bad. I'm not gonna help him, you know what I mean?
Listen, when it all comes down to in the end, it's not about religion, it's not about Jews, it's not about Muslims.
Nigga.
It's about this shit right here. About money, That's nigga. what it's all about. Money, nigga.
You don't want to talk to me?
Oh, I would love to talk to you.
Okay, fine. You know, the sad thing about your forming Iran is that you don't really want some representation of the community. You want somebody really who does not, who speaks off his head, who does not really know what's he talking about. Okay? That's the point. And that's why the Arab American point of view is not really getting to the rest of America. When there was a theory that all Jews in World Trade Center were told not to go that September 11, they said the Arabs actually said that. It was not the Arabs. It was not the Muslims.
But sir, would you agree though that there are many, many people that do believe that no Jews died in the World Trade Center?
That's baloney.
You don't believe there are many, many people that believe that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think.
Do you think that?
Yes, Jews did not show up to work that day. Over 4,000 Jews did not show up to work that day.
You believe that?
Yeah, I believe that, and it was said.
I remember receiving a phone call from one of my friends in Istanbul who said to me, "Hey, what is this 4,000 Jews?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, their headline in the Turkish newspapers is that 4,000 Jews were saved." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I had a visit recently by a German television network, and they said to me, "Please tell them it isn't true." I said, "Why?" They said, "Because the youth of Germany today believes that the Jews did it." Irony? Where does the number 4,000 come? An interview on the second day after 9/11 with the Israeli Consul General in New York, when the reporter said to him, "Do you have any idea how many Israelis were killed?" And he says, "No, but I've received 4,000 calls from relatives in Israel asking about their family." So there is that number 4,000, and it mattered not that an organization, Al-Qaeda, took credit for it. The world begins to believe in what it wants to believe, and that's where the protocols are alive.
Protocol number 9. We rule by indomitable will because we possess a boundless ambition, burning greed for merciless revenge and bitter hatred. From us emanates an all-embracing terror.
Conspiracy theories like the protocols have proliferated in the post-9/11 world. Some are based on older secret societies like the Masons, the Rosicrucianists, or the Illuminati. Other on more recent elites like Skull and Bones, the Bilderberg Group, or the Trilateral Commission. Some start with a germ of truth and mutate into something fantastic, like the 9/11 Israeli conspiracy theory.
هو لم يعرف حتى الآن من الذي قام بضرب أمريكا يوم 11، لكن ما يثبت أن العملية عملية يهودية، وأن 5 من اليهود طلعوا على رسالة، طلعوا على مبنى كبير وصوروا الضربة الأولى بالطائرة الأولى قبل أن تحدث، قبل أن يعلن عنها شيء. وعملوا هرج ومرج واستدعى البوليس وقبض عليهم وطلع أنهم من اليهود.
It was somewhere in this neighborhood where neighbors looking at the towers burning looked down and saw what appeared to be 5 gentlemen on the roof of a warehouse and or their van photographing and allegedly celebrating as the towers were burning right over there. And somebody around here named Maria called 911.
I grabbed my binoculars and I could see the towers from my window. And this is where I'm looking. And all of a sudden, down there, I see this van park. And I see 3 guys on top of the van. And I could see that they were like happy. They didn't look shocked to me. They didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
Amazingly enough, we have found the moving company where the 5 Israelis worked.
Was this building being used as a front for some kind of Israeli intelligence operation that possibly was doing surveillance on the Arab American community? Were there men celebrating or slapping fives or whatever.
Some of the guys were kind of happy that, you know, they were smiling. It wasn't like something, you know, out of terror. And I think some of the people saw them up on the roof from that building over there and reported them to the police.
We had received an all-points bulletin, and I just happened to see the van and, you know, hollered over to my lieutenant, you know, I think that could be the van. We checked it out, and it was. You know, we were all on edge, obviously, so I really wasn't looking to make friends with these people, and neither were the officers that I were with. Once we started talking to them, you know, they were pretty much like, hey, you know, we're not against you, we're with you.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
The 5 Israelis were detained for 10 weeks and finally deported on immigration violations after the FBI cleared them of any involvement in 9/11. There are certainly real questions that remain, but there are also real dangers in jumping to conclusions about who to blame.
We were passing out 9/11 flyers, thousands of them. I think we passed out something like 16,000 that had pictures of the tower, you know, the explosion in it, and we said, let's stop being human shields for Israel.
Don't you believe that they hate Americans as much as they hate Jews or Israelis?
Oh, I don't want no Arabs in my country either. I'm not trying to bring Arabs here. I'm not saying, when I can relate to their hostility, that doesn't mean I want them marrying my daughter.
So when it's up like that, it symbolizes...
The National Alliance is one of the country's largest white power organizations, with headquarters here in the mountains of West Virginia.
Okay, I became a skinhead about 21 years ago. So that was my freshman year in high school.
You know, back in 1983, that really stood out. And then the media, of course, always called you Nazis. Even at the time when I first became a skinhead, I had no problem with Jews. In fact, I thought Jews were just like white people with a different religion. About a year after I shaved my head, my buddy gave me a copy of Mein Kampf to read. When I read Mein Kampf, I think about 50 pages in, I thought that this book really has something to say. This is the warehouse, where we house most of our stuff. Over here we just have more of a National Alliance stickers. Earth's most endangered species, about 2 million of those we've sold so far. It's almost like our trademark sticker. Coffee mugs, bomber jackets, boots. These are some boots that we market exclusively. We have 2, the Stealth and the Panzer. The Panzer have swastika and the SS bolts, and these are quite popular, especially with the skinheads or the younger crowd.
But you're not wearing them.
No, actually I have a pair, but actually I prefer tan boots myself, or oxblood. I'm not much into black.
The reason I'm wearing a tie here is because the American public views certain clothing as normal. Back in the 60s, Rockwell might have been, you know, George Lincoln Rockwell, would be wearing a brown shirt with a swastika armband.
Right.
Now that just looks bizarre to the American public.
Mm-hmm. Communism is a Jewish conspiracy. The communist conspiracy is organizing the colored people of the world all over the earth against the white people for the benefit of the Jews.
Now, you say this is still a seller?
Yeah, actually from around the world. We get people from Argentina, Australia, wherever. A lot of countries it's illegal to have, say as in Germany, Austria, or whatever like that, but they'll buy it. And then we even have distributors that want to literally smuggle in a flag. Then we have like core books, of course, the Protocols being one of them. It's a timeless book, it's always going to sell.
Sold out.
Right, they're on order. We'll be getting more in.
Do you think that this book, I mean, you said now you have Mein Kampf right here, right? Mm-hmm. Do you feel that the Protocols had any influence on Hitler?
Hitler definitely knew about the Protocols. I mean, he was pen pals with Henry Ford.
What about this rumor that Hitler himself had Jewish blood? I mean, that was like an explanation for why he hated Jews so much, is that he feared that he himself was part Jewish.
See, I think that's a Jewish mindset that could even grasp that concept, because to me, if you're part Jewish, then why do you want to kill off the Jewish people?
Because you want to kill it in yourself.
Well, Hitler, I don't see himself as suicidal in the slightest. I thought he
committed suicide.
The National Alliance tries to keep Hitler's legacy alive by translating and distributing old Nazi propaganda films.
Unlike in 1914, we no longer see just the most grotesque and comical of these questionable ghetto figures. This time we recognize that there's a plague here, a plague that threatens the health of the Aryan peoples. Parallel to these Jewish wanderings throughout the world is the migration of a similarly restless animal, the rat. They are cunning, cowardly, and cruel, and usually appear in massive hordes. They represent the elements of sneakiness and subterranean destruction among animals, just as the Jews do among mankind.
Do you believe there was a Holocaust?
I've been to the concentration camps. I mean, if they say 100,000 people died at Auschwitz, that's a Holocaust.
You don't believe 6 million Jews were exterminated?
I'm very skeptical. But did they have the camps? Did they torture people? Did they have experimentation? Yes, I believe that's documented well enough, and I do believe those things existed. To me, it's more like I mean, it might sound a little cold, but, you know, people go to Disneyland or the haunted house to get scared. If that's what they want to do, to go to the Holocaust thing and get scared, that's fine. But it's a for-profit place. I mean, I bought beer at Auschwitz. Music has got a great... I think Jews today are the most powerful organization politically and economically on the planet. I mean, do Jews have a plan? Were they content people doing whatever? Someone came up with a plan to dominate the planet. They read it to them. They said, wow, this sounds good. And they've told that story on for 4,000 years. Or do they have genetic impulses that make them want to do this? I mean, why does a dodo bird do what a dodo bird does?
You talked about Jewish influence in the media or Jewish control, but what about Rupert Murdoch, who is like the biggest new force in media?
Absolutely, and we've been wondering that thing about Rupert Murdoch, and Rupert Murdoch is a Jew.
What?
Yes. We got all the articles that they're publishing in Australian newspapers going through his Jewish bloodline. So I'm in very much doubt that Murdoch doesn't have Jewish background.
You don't do the audio copies of the protocols, do you?
No, that's interesting. What I have talked about is we want to do a video of the protocols, and we got a few people that are working on. And if we could have that done in a year, that would be, you know, an excellent thing. We would definitely market it, sell it, push it as much as we can.
Protocol number 10. The voting system which we have used as a tool for our enthronement will have performed its last service. The mob has become accustomed to listen only to us who pay it for obedience and attention.
Oh, did y'all remember to vote?
For all those people that say the Jews run the world, the Jews control everything, I have one question. What happened here in West Palm Beach 4 years ago on Election Day? Please, tell me, how did the Jews who run the world get so confused on their butterfly ballots that they ended up voting for Pat Buchanan and George Bush?
Somebody goofed. That's what happened.
They were confused. It was just an error.
Press English.
You know, when I just come out from outside, I don't see that good.
Can you see it
Yes.
now? Okay. Turn next on the right-hand side.
I can't see it.
You didn't press English.
Well, I
press
did.
it. Okay?
Yes.
Now, press next. And you'll see the candidates.
Yeah, but I missed one.
How do you look at now after 9/11 things that we haven't seen in a long time?
They're starting off all over again.
Is that what you think?
Yeah, it was peaceful for a while. We lived free and we enjoyed life. Now we're scared again.
You tell me, there's here in the United States, every kid has to go to high school. People are educated here. There's a special now, we have communication, transportation, the world is open. The people are not stupid. Yet, it's so in their genes, the Jew, sooner or later, when you come in contact with somebody, Sooner or later, it's going to come up on top.
I've been described by several people as the most dangerous man in America. Here are the stats for JewWatch right now. 33,300 something hits. I simply developed a site, and it worked its way up to the top of Google. What surprised me was that suddenly my name and my website was all over the universe. All right, well, first of all, when you come to JewWatch, it says keeping a close watch on Jewish communities and organizations worldwide. And then the usual JewWatch fare. We have Jewish references and documents, the Talmud, the Torah, the Old Testament, the Kabbalah, Das Kapital, the Communist Manifesto, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, the works of Sigmund Freud. And Henry Ford is on the website, and he basically expounded on the protocols in the International Jew, which is considered the piece de la resistance of anti-Semitism in the world. It is the biblical reference, so to speak. Let's see here. Many people have wondered whence come the waves upon waves of musical slush that invade decent homes and set the young people of this generation imitating the drivel of morons. Popular music is a Jewish monopoly. Jazz is a Jewish creation. The mush, slush, the sly suggestion, the abandoned sensuousness of sliding notes are of Jewish origin.
Jews in outer space?
No, I don't think so.
So the Jewish conspiracy is only earthbound. It hasn't gone intergalactic yet.
I haven't seen any pawn shops on the moon yet. I'm looking at protocol number 12. And we shall deal with the press in the following way. We shall saddle and bridle the press with a tight curb. So, the elders of Zion say that they will take over this world. Have they done it? What do you think? 454-0400, you're on with Couchy, and you are a star.
If the international Zionist bankers start another war for the advancement of profit or communism, I will exterminate them. 1932, Adolf Hitler. That's all I got to say.
Well, that's fairly radical. I don't think we need to comment on that. 454-0400, you're on with Couchy, and you're a star.
If it walks like a duck, if it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, then it probably is a duck. And from what I remember of the protocols of Zion, the first way they wanted to destroy religion was to promote gambling and pornography and all the vices. Well, ask yourself, who's in control of all the vices in today's world, all the pornography and gambling and all that? It's the Jews. And who's promoting misogyny and racial mix-up? It's the Jews.
You're on with Couchy, that evil white man living his life like a non-African and loving every minute of it.
They will dig into your past, do anything to defame you. There's such a thing called anti-Semitism, and that goes against our Constitution. You know why?
I don't think it's against the Constitution. If every anti-Semite lost their citizenship, we'd probably only have about a fourth or half of the country left.
Well, just put it this way. We're on to you guys, and it's always July on the media. I'll talk to you later.
It's always July on the media. Very, very clever.
We're talking about the independent media. Where's the independent media? In other words, where's the Arab point of view? I mean, in regards to the Middle East, there is no independent media in America.
Well, I am going to agree with you on that. I just don't see that as a product of Jewish monopoly or Jewish control or Jewish conspiracy. I see that as a product of a system, a global corporate capitalist system, and where you have these big corporations, more and more of them gobbling up everything. Now, we talked about Rupert Murdoch and Fox News. I don't see that as part of a Jewish conspiracy. Sony a Japanese company, Vivendi, a French company, the Bertelsmann Group, a German company. In other words, these are the huge media conglomerates that are buying up everything, gobbling up everything, getting rid of independent media. I don't see that as part of a Jewish conspiracy.
It's good to hear the voice of one of the SOBs that's doing it on this show. But they never give us a fair...
Tell us what you really think,
They
Rick.
never give us a fair shot. I want equal representation for black on white crimes. And 90% of the interracial crime in this country, my friend, is black on white. But you would never know that from watching you people in the media, and I despise you.
I guess to, kind of just sum up how I just see the protocols, I would have to say that it is the big lie. And what is the big lie? The big lie is always looking for someone else to blame. So my simple take on it is, stop blaming us, stop blaming the Jews, and look at yourself. I mean, you don't need the Jews, as this book implies, to stir it up. This fixation and obsession on being pure and only with your own kind and never mixing, that goes against the humanist impulse, which is there is something common in all of us.
Well, you really know how to push my buttons because, as you may know, I'm basically a separatist. I think that people should live with their own kind. They should associate with those with whom they grew up. And that we shouldn't have blacks living with whites, because if you mix them up, eventually they're going to miscegenate, they're going to integrate, their culture is going to become polluted with other people's culture, and they're not even going to recognize themselves.
Officer Mercer, 1100. How many inmates? 9 inmates, 1 camera crew, 1 civilian, 2 officers, and a 1 EE perimeter. Copy.
Protocol number 5. We have incited religious and race hatred, nurtured by us in their hearts for 20 centuries.
Where did you first become familiar with the Protocols of the Elders of Zion?
In prison.
How did it read to you? I mean, what did
it was very believable. It was like, okay, finally I got the proof. This is it. I finally can prove that, that these Jews are really trying to take over the world.
I've noticed a lot of the policies that are being made today, the neoconservatives, they fall right in line, almost in sync with what was said in the Protocols of Zion.
When you grow up black in America, you've heard that Jews did this and Jews have done that all your life, whether they have or not. It's the problem with the extremists on both sides, especially look at slavery, the Jewish involvement with the African slave trade, especially in America. Jews say, oh, we weren't involved, where on the other side, they said Jews were responsible for it. The truth is probably some murky middle.
What I guess is hard to understand is not that there may have been some Jews involved in the slave trade, but the majority of what was America then and what was the slave trade was done by Christian nations and by Christian Americans. It was like you had blacks, then you had Jews, then you had Catholics. In other words, they were always on the same hit list.
I was never taught by any of my teachers or the Honorable Louis Farrakhan to hate anybody. We were always taught self first.
I believe in positivity. I believe it doesn't matter what you believe in. There are scumbags in all creeds and all colors. I think a lot of time people they'll take the step from pro-self into anti-other without being able to just be pro-self.
Well, separatism in itself, it propagates supremacy. Because what happens is, as you start separating, you start saying, okay, we're different, and we're different because we're better.
And by the way, we did not start separation. We didn't tell, when we came over here on them boats, the Caucasians was on the top, we was locked down the bottom. But reparations is not man's idea, it's God's idea.
Right, but with all that energy wasted pointing the finger, saying it's the Jews, it's the crackers.
You're the one who do that.
I'm not pointing any fingers.
Let me just say this. Conversation is not combat to me. I don't have to win no conversation. I don't have to win no argument. I'm not trying to impose my views on somebody. You know what I mean? Hating you doesn't make me be able to play basketball or read another language or get out of prison.
There's this thing written on money, e pluribus unum, out of many one. If you can find unity
between different groups, you are stronger. And so the ideal that we can live together, that black and white, that Latin and Asian, that Jew and Gentile can, I have not abandoned. I'm just saying, and I think there's a strength. When you find that, there can be a strength.
In the Quran, there's an ayat or verse that says we created different nations and tribes so mankind would know each other, not that they would revile or despise each other. Now, most people may not live up to that, but this is what the teachings are from God himself.
Our visit to Trenton State Prison was set up by my father and Eric Daniels. They met on a film we did a while ago when Eric was still a white supremacist and believed in the Protocols of Zion. Since then, Eric became a born-again Christian, and he and my father have grown close.
It's good to see you. It's been a while since the old days, and you're looking good.
The old days?
Well, you know, we go back a long way.
So this is where you grew up?
Absolutely. And I'll never forget this. When I walked to Hebrew school, I was 10 or 11, I used to walk up there, and I went past the church, and one day, coming back from Hebrew school, at that church, I stopped, and I thought to myself, if there's a God, and I insult this God, I'll get struck down. So I'm going to take a chance, and I'm going to say, and I said, God, go to hell. And I waited, and I waited, and nothing happened, and that did it. From that day on, I was what you would call an atheist. An atheist at the age of 10 or 11.
You said, though, you used to walk around and some of the neighbors were Catholic.
Ah, that house was an inferno.
Why? What was
Catholics.
Uh-huh.
I mean, in this house, these were monsters. There were about 11 of them. 3 girls, 5 boys, mother and father, twice a day go to confession, boom, 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 night and day. And we're a Hebrew family. And those sons of bitches, in my opinion, they never let me, you know, Jew boy, Christ killer. I mean, the same on and on and on and on. It was like having a curse. A curse was on my soul. Anti-Semitism, it wasn't like you had it was in the atmosphere. You didn't have to explain it, because in those days, that was when the Catholic Church was actively anti-Semitic.
And you said you used to hear some of the radio broadcasts as a kid?
Right. I mean, there was a regular, he was called Father Coughlin.
I dared you and challenged you to organize so that the people, if not the president, would drive the money changers from the temple, and you did it.
Protocol number 14. When we become rulers, we will not tolerate the existence of any other religion except our own, which proclaims one God, with whom our fate is bound up because we are the chosen people, and our fate has determined the fate of the world.
As I tried to understand why the Protocols of Zion has such staying power, I realized you have to go all the way back to the birth of Christianity. The image of the evil Jewish conspiracy is rooted in the 2,000-year-old deicide charge that the Jews killed Christ.
Who really killed Jesus? For years, I have sought to open the hearts and minds of Christians to say there has been an ugly plague called anti-Semitism in the church that must be utterly and completely eradicated. And to hold Jews today responsible for the death of Jesus is absolutely reprehensible and unacceptable. The simple issue is this: we have missed our Messiah, and when he came, he spoke as a prophet.
There is a devil who hates the Jews, and he is ultimately behind all the anti-Jewish libel, the slander that goes around that's against Jewish people. But like Frida was saying, there is a remnant of true believers in Yeshua who love the Jewish people, who pray for the Jewish people, and pray daily for Israel. And we're a part of that remnant.
Jesus was put to death because he claimed to be the Jewish king. End of story. The Romans had abolished the Jewish monarchy. If you challenge Roman authority, they put you to death real quick.
There were many Jewish people crucified by the Romans during that time, and the movie, I believe, points that out, but there was only one that rose from the dead.
And the Jews were herded together into the great synagogue in July of 1099, and the synagogue was burned to the ground by the Crusaders with the Jews alive inside as they marched around singing, "Christ we adore thee." Christians need to know what Jewish history books teach that's often left out of the Christian history curriculum.
Did the Jews kill Jesus?
He was a child of Israel. There were Jews and Romans in Israel. There were no Norwegians there. The Jewish Sanhedrin and those who they held sway over, and the Romans, were the material agents of his demise. You know, critics who have a problem with me don't really have a problem with me in this film. They have a problem with the four Gospels.
A literal rendition of the Passion story does in fact charge the Jews with the murder of Jesus. So what we have to do is learn a new way to read the Passion narrative. The church in 1965, having learned from the Holocaust where all of this leads, said you cannot charge the Jewish people with the murder of Jesus. So whatever you do, however you read these texts, however you portray them on film, be careful. Do not do anything that reinforces the old lie.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Most of you know that we're here because of the release of The Passion that's going to occur tomorrow. As you know, The Passion of Christ has threatened to divide Christians and Jewish people. We understand our Jewish friends' fears and concerns, born of long historical experience. I think this movie's a good movie. But the reason I think it's a good movie is because I see it through Christian eyes. I see it as a love story. We believe that this movie is the Michelangelo portrait for our generation.
Pastor Mark Levin, good
Hi.
to meet you.
Hi, good
Rabbi
to meet you.
Mark
Yeah.
Levin.
Hi, yes.
Now, I mean, what I was just getting
Oh, I
at...
thought you were Pastor Mark Levin.
No.
I said Pastor Mark Levin.
And you said you saw this as a love story. I'm going to see it tomorrow night.
Yeah, the story of Christ.
It
yeah.
wasn't too painful? I mean, many people...
It was horribly painful.
But you say it was a love story.
It's a revelation of the depth of our own sinfulness.
When I talk to relatives, it's, you know, who are in their 80s, etc., they're panicked. And I was like, why would you be panicked over a movie? Mel Gibson, it might be interesting, I'm going to go see it. And then when they tell you what they lived through...
Yeah, but that can go on forever. We can't deal with 2,000 years of history. We've got to deal with our generation and the future, which is what we're doing. Our generation's better than any generation in the past. The future will be better than the past if we're effective. But what happened during Shakespeare's time? What happened during the time of the Crusaders? We can't change any of that.
This is Pastor Kelag. This is a survivor of the Holocaust.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you were lucky if you came home in one piece, because they didn't like the way you were walking, they didn't like the way you were holding your shovel, or just any reason. They shot you. I had two uncles there with me. One was working on a, excuse me, on a railroad, and he found a potato. He sliced the potato and he put it under his shirt. He came in when he was searched, they found it and they shot him. I had to bury him the next day.
The loudspeaker then gave the following instructions. Straight. As the people began undressing, a tall SS man called out to them in a loud minister's voice. Nothing is going to hurt you. Just breathe deep and it will strengthen your lungs. 32 minutes later, all those in the gas chamber were dead.
And they claim there were 6 million in Poland. And then they claim after the war there were only it was 6,200,000 according to some almanac or other. Now, after the war, there were 200,000, it says. Therefore, he must have killed 6 million of them. They simply got up and left. They were all over the Bronx and Brooklyn and Sydney, Australia, and Los Angeles. They have to have some place to go where there's money.
I didn't want to talk, and I didn't talk for years. Until the deniers came saying that it never happened. Then I could not be quiet. This is a picture of my younger brother. This is my niece. Five years old. This used to be my girlfriend. She was raped and shot. And I remember I tried to commit suicide. And I remember this exactly. That I saw this man in front of me. He says, you cannot do it, you got to suffer. And he gave me that courage. I opened my eyes. I says, I'm not going to do it until I have to die. This is a belt which I wear. Every morning when I get up, I got to put this on. If not, I can't move. I can't walk. I had 3 back surgeries. It was done in the camp. I mean, the hitting was done in camp. I had 2 heart surgeries. Open heart surgery. I had a bypass. I had a stroke. I'm anemic. I am diabetic. I got the pacemaker. But I'm not giving up. For as long as the good Lord would let me do it. I've been talking because that's all what I got left.
Protocol number 13. To prevent them from reaching any independent decision, we will divert their minds by amusements, games, pastimes, passions, and cultural centers for the people.
The Jews played a major role in creating modern media, especially the movie business. But right now, it seems like it's almost taboo to discuss the role of the Jews in Hollywood.
Larry David? Hey, thank you for getting back to me. Norman Lear gave me your number. Why? Well, to be frank, he said you're the hottest Jew in Hollywood. And if I wanted to talk to anybody, I needed to speak to you. The only thing you know about is yourself. The only thing you know how to talk about is yourself. Well, let's start there. You're Jewish. You're in Hollywood. You're circumcised. Rob Reiner, why do you want me? All right, I'll call Rob Reiner. Rob Reiner, thank you for taking my call. I was trying to arrange a group of Jews in the entertainment industry to kind of get together the night before Gibson's Passion opens, but to talk about a lot of other issues. You're busy. Yeah, I know it's pilot season. Call Norman? Wait, I started with Norman. Norman had me call Larry. Larry had me call you. I feel like I'm doing the telephone horror here. I sometimes feel the Jews are hiding. They're afraid to come out. And the Christians are all waiting with open arms. Well, here we go. I am going to see it right now at Universal City. It certainly has blasted off. There's no doubt about that. Hang on, I'm going to put this out. What am I doing? Hi, folks. My name is Mark Levin.
I'm Stefan. Nice meeting you.
Good to meet you.
This movie is really a movie about love more than anything.
Big time.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
Because
big
at the end, that's when you really, figure it all out. You know,
yeah,
I mean, you know, for someone to do what they did.
It just reminds me that I have him because of Jesus. I have, you know, I'm like, there's so many things that have happened because of his love. You know, there's so many things that I can let go of, and it just really reminds me of that.
This is going to be brutal, but it's going to be factual. The way Christ was on the cross was not pretty. When you watch it, you will feel what really happened. Feel the nail going in the hand, the spear going through, you know. Maybe feel the pain that that man, who was a man at the time, went through.
I took this film very personal. You know, it's me. It's not something, it has nothing to do with, you know, Jews or, you know, this is a collective act of people against God, and I'm part of it. I'm a sinner.
Certainly the New Testament
doesn't produce the hatred of the Jews. How could it? Jesus is a Jew. All the apostles are Jews. Mary is a Jew. Everybody's I mean, as a Gentile myself, I suppose I could say, if I had one regret in life, it is that I'm not Jewish, because all my heroes are Jewish.
I look to Christians to understand how the message of Christ has been perverted for 2,000 years. To ignore that there were many people who believed, and there were thousands slaughtered who were given a choice: convert with a cross in your face, confess your love for Jesus, or die.
Some people have given Christianity a horrible name, and, you know, all the atrocities from history, you know, we have to point the finger at ourselves, because people claim to be Christians and yet they live like that. They would do that, and you would say the Christian point of view would be, as you could probably figure out, would be they really weren't Christians.
Are we Jews here to be converted when the second coming comes, and if we accept him as you have, we will know everlasting life, and if we don't, we're doomed, I guess, as the rest of humanity is?
Yeah, that's true. It is true. Salvation is in Christ and Christ alone. There is no salvation apart from Christ. There is no other name, the Bible says, by which men can be saved. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to God except through him. There is no other way, whether you're a Jew or a Gentile, whatever, whether you're a Catholic or a Protestant, a Hindu or a Buddhist, there is no other way. And that's the reason the mandate is to go to the world and spread the message of the gospel.
You know, I spent my life going to temple every Friday. I had a bat mitzvah. I was in Hebrew school, and Jesus was never mentioned. Like, it was just a switch I turned off. I never wanted to hear about him because it just didn't matter. But then when I grew up and, you know, I was out into the world, I was no longer sheltered, someone shared the gospel with me at a restaurant, a total stranger. And she did it in a loving way, but she told me that there is only one way. And here I'd been reading philosophy books and studying everything about wisdom of God, never even thought of Christianity or Jesus.
Great meeting you.
Me too.
All right.
And the door is open, even though you're Jewish. I'm Jewish.
This is your way. I cannot accept somebody telling me that Gandhi or Mohammed or the myriad of other people that have been great spiritual leaders are not going to get in. My point is that there are many people that will read these lines and say, this is the literal truth, and this is what it means. Like the Catholic Church. They were here before evangelicals. So how can you be so certain, knowing they were wrong for 1,500 years? They read the same lines, they believed Jesus was the Son of God, but they didn't have it quite right.
Conversion is not from us, it's from God. So it's only the Holy Spirit who convicts the heart. And believe me, starting tonight, you're going to be included in my prayers.
Protocol number 17. We have already taken care to discredit the clergy of the Goys and thus to undermine their function. The King of Israel will become the real Pope of the universe.
There he is. Yeah. 1956 to 61.
Right.
Herman Levin was president. Look at this. My father's lips and his father's lips.
Well, he certainly stirred this place up. I mean, when he left, a good guy, I mean, he tried to, you know, bring them more into modern Judaism, and some of the old-timers couldn't handle that. I want to walk over to one of those windows.
I can read most of them. You're Herman Levin.
Oh.
Look at that.
Absolutely great. I mean, this meant a lot to him.
Passover was our family's most important annual gathering. It was there that my grandparents, my Nana and Papa, passed on the Jewish tradition to my cousins, my sisters, and me. The Exodus story of the Jews' journey from slavery to freedom is the total opposite of the protocols. Its retelling starts with the children asking 4 questions of the elders. This year, at the downtown Seder, just blocks away from Ground Zero, I found myself asking a 5th question. Why are they still blaming the Jews?
tonight is going into Pesach, which is the story of the freedom of the Jewish people. And we've been a small people that has been put into exile, spread all over the world, and somehow we've made it through. So I think in general that sometimes people see the Jews and they see this is not a normal people. They're not a people that there's something different about them. There's something supernatural about them almost. And therefore have wanted to take things out on us.
Me say you run, but you could not hide. None of them crazy murderers would never run from inside. You try to keep me down cause you see not joy. All them knows them from, so you call a man a boy. You not I can just see, open up your eyes.
The thing that makes Judaism dangerous to everybody, to every race, to every nation, to every idea, is that we smash things that aren't true. We don't believe in the boundaries of nation state. We don't believe in the ideas of these individual gods that protect individual groups of people. These are all artificial constructions, and Judaism really teaches us how to see that. In a sense, our detractors have us right, in that we are a corrosive force. We're breaking down the false gods of all nations and all people because they're not real. And that's very upsetting to people.
To inspire, see that riba yo ba yo, arriba yo.
The Pesach is an invitation to become free. Can you have the courage to get rid of the things that you are slave to? Me, I'm slave to my cell phone, to my Palm Pilot, to my laptop, to my workaholism, to my clients. Am I a free person? I ask you, are you a free person?
I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
Exactly. So Pesach is a work in progress. Once a year, you get to sit with your friends and do procedure, order. What is out, what is in, what is bitter, what is sweet, who is the family, what is different. You clean. Today, I scrubbed my toilet. Now look, I have maids who clean up. I have a service. But the toilet, I clean myself.
And why is that?
You have to deal with your shit.
Things are not what they seem. Snakes are camouflage just to fit the scene. I put my faith in a mirage. It's just a smoke screen. You took that road and you know where it leads. 600,000 witnessed it. No, you didn't forget. No, you didn't forget. No, you didn't forget. No, you didn't forget.
اسمع، بدنا دم طفل مسيحي قبل الفصح مشان الفطير.
Thanks. Oh, this is nice. Mehdi, have you seen any of these Arab TV miniseries that have caused so much controversy? How do you feel about it?
My feeling that there was so much overreaction because when it comes to anything about Jewish, the whole world will turn upside down. And there was pressure put on the Egyptian government, other Arab governments, other satellite networks, just because something was mentioned about Jewish. But on the contrary, when there's something about Muslim and Islam and terrorism, nobody cares.
So, after 9/11, do you feel people treat you differently?
Absolutely. On the day of 9/11, actually, I was driving my daughter and some of her friends from school because, everything was closed. And we were yelled at on the street by a lady. She jumped from her car, started telling the girls, take off your veils. I do not want to see more children suffering from all this atrocity that's been happening for the past 50 or 60 years.
Israeli fighter jets and helicopter gunships struck targets around Gaza and the West Bank. For 14 months now, the situation in the Middle East has been at a boiling point. Now it appears it may be about to explode.
لمن وضع حزاما ناسفا على نفسه أو على أبنائه ودخل في أعماق اليهود وقال الله أكبر ولله الحمد.
Nothing has done more to fuel the hatreds and create a new generation of believers in the protocols than the endless cycle of violence between the Israelis and the Palestinians. The charter of the militant Hamas organization states that the Zionist plan is, quote, embodied in the protocols of the elders of Zion.
All right, we're here in Sunset Park because there's been a meeting called of the Arab American community after the assassination of Sheikh Ahmad Yassin, leader, founder of Hamas, who was blown up a day and a half ago in his wheelchair in Gaza.
بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون.
The struggle of the Palestinian people did not start with Sheikh Yassin, nor will it end with him. So no matter how many people the Israeli criminals kill, no matter how many homes they destroy, they will never, ever break the Palestinian spirit.
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. قتل الظالم، قتل العاطل. الله أكبر، الله أكبر.
A guy like Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, he dies, you know, that's like one of the main guys that really cared about us, you know? He really spoke with energy. He cared so much about Palestinians.
Do you believe Jews and Muslims can live together?
Oh yeah, I seen it. Trust me, I seen it. I seen it with my own eyes. I had a lot of Jewish friends out there. Plenty. I used to go out to Tel Aviv. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, my name's Awad. You know, I'm Palestinian. No problem. Yeah, you know. American, I was born and raised in Brooklyn. Sure, you know. We got along so well, but, you know, politics, you know, it turned everybody angry on each other. Like, you see everybody over here, I can't really look at somebody that's against me right now. That's Israeli. If I see an Israeli, of course, you know, I'm going to be very angry. I'm not going to be pleased to look at them and watch them just walk right by me. And knowing that overseas they're killing my brothers and my sisters.
Sharon, he's the true terrorist. Come here. He's the true terrorist. He should be condemned.
No. Let him talk.
Sharon is the true terrorist. He's the one committing martial law.
Sir, would you respect our?
Destroying agriculture.
If you want to do this interview, one of two things: inside or outside.
Nobody understands fear more than Muslims, especially Palestinians. We live every day with fear. We don't know when the phone's gonna ring, which relative died, whose house got demolished. People just going to school to take finals, stuff like that. They never come home, you know? You gotta hear grieving mothers all the time. I also understand how Americans feel fear because of what happened on 9/11. People left their house in the morning, expected to come home, and they never came home, so it could happen to anybody.
There are good Arabs, there are bad Arabs. The ones that did 9/11, they're, what can I say, they're bastards. That's nothing else but that. We are not one of those people. Yeah, we do want peace. How do we form peace when we are oppressed?
What's the difference between a suicide bomber and an F-16 bomber? I didn't know how to answer it.
We had no weapons, so we used our own possible means.
They used it.
A suicide belt costs $150. An Apache helicopter costs $15 million. You do the difference.
Now the Palestinians had nothing. The only thing they had left was faith. So they take away that, what happens? Chaos between the Palestinians. That's what the Israeli government wants. It's that simple. If nobody sees it over here, if you don't see it, and maybe you're denying it, I don't know what to tell you. And he didn't want peace. Don't say he didn't want peace. And I saw the headlines that they had in the Daily News and the New York Post. That's all bullshit.
I am not going to defend the media. But let me ask you this. You don't think the Arab world media is biased?
It's the
الطفلة دي هتعرفكم دلوقتي على نفسها. هي بنت أخت ليا في الله هويدا، وبنت الفنان وجدي العربي، وهي اسمها بسملة، وهنسألها كمان. السلام عليكم.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اسمك ايه؟
بسملة.
بسملة، عندك كام سنة؟
3 سنين ونص.
انت مسلمة؟ بسملة، انت تعرفي اليهود؟ بتحبيهم؟ لا، ما بتحبيهمش ليه؟
كده.
عشان هم ايه؟
هم قردة وخنازير.
عشان هم قردة وخنازير؟ مين قال عليهم كده؟
ربنا.
قال عليهم فين؟
في القرآن.
قال عليهم في القرآن كده، صح.
Protocol number 24. The pillar of the universe in the person of the world ruler, sprung from the sacred seed of David, must sacrifice all personal desires for the benefit of his people.
In the end of the protocols, a Jew rules the world. And for much of the world today, because of the support for Israel, the new Jews are Americans.
The amount to show our support to Israel, you know, we're Jewish kids, Orthodox kids living in the New York area.
Of course, we believe anything that was part of Israel in the Bible should be part of Israel now. Maybe we want those areas because it's important to us, you know, it's our fundamentals and stuff. If there's no Israel, then there's no us.
It seems to me that 50, 60, 70 years after the Holocaust, we've forgotten what Israel means to the Jewish people. That we created a state because we had no place else to go, and this resurgence of anti-Semitism, which is disguised as anti-Zionism, okay, is disgusting.
Can you criticize Israel and
of course I criticize Israel, and I'm a good Jew. You know why? Because it isn't right-wing enough. Because they don't expel the Arabs, because they're staying there in a suicidal situation with 3 million Nazi-like Palestinians, every one of which wants to blow themselves up, with a death mentality, with a martyr mentality, that want to kill us and wipe us out. And what are they doing there? They have to go. Kahana was right.
From the minute they're born and they can talk, they're brainwashed to hate Jews, to hate Christians, to hate Americans, to hate. Now, if you want peace with people like that are programmed, that's insanity. That's suicide. That's suicide. That's why when these peace lovers, they go to these countries, I mean, I feel horrible about Nicholas Berg dying and so forth, but he learned the lesson. We all learned the lesson. You want to embrace these people and treat them with all this peace and love, your head's going to be rolling in the street, rolling on the internet for us all to watch. That's what's going to happen to all these peace lovers, that they think that peace is the answer. That peace is great in a perfect world, but these people don't want peace.
هذا يهودي خلفي، تعال واقطع رأسه. ونحن نقطعها، والله لا نقطعها. أيها اليهود، الله أكبر، الله أكبر، الله أكبر. الجهاد في سبيل الله. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. يا أمة القرآن، الله أكبر، يا أمة القرآن. الله أكبر عليكم. الله أكبر. والنصرة للمؤمنين. الله أكبر. والنصرة للمؤمنين. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. يا أمة القرآن.
My name is Daniel Pearl. I'm a Jewish American from California, USA. I come from on my father's side, a family of Zionists. My father's Jewish. My mother's Jewish. I'm Jewish. My family follows Judaism. We've made numerous family visits to Israel.
Yeah. When you see something like this, a journalist would be kidnapped who is trying to understand this new world and trying to make sense of it, and that he could be slaughtered like an animal and his head held up as a prize, as a trophy, and that somewhere in the world people watch that and celebrate, laugh, and feel somehow empowered or victorious. It's just tragic, and I just hope that whatever we do in some way continues his search for truth and his belief that somehow you could make a difference and ultimately bring people together.
We thought he disappeared, but he didn't. Call it anti-Semitism, a term coined at the end of the 19th century, or simply Jew hatred. It is the oldest collective bigotry in recorded history. It is no longer political, social, or religious, or ethnic. It is existential. It is metaphysical. The anti-Semite doesn't know me, but he hates me. Actually, he hated me even before I was born. Help us fight it. Help us disarm it. For hatred is dangerous. Hatred is contagious. He or she who hates Jews hates all minorities, all those who are different. He or she who hates Jews will end up hating everybody, and then himself.
Why those people died has everything to do with it. They weren't killed by Islamic fundamentalists.
This is not a political stage here,
Sure
man.
it is. Look at the size of that flag. Of course this is a political stage. Get the fuck out of here.
Get out of here.
Fuck off me. People like you fucking disgust me. You fucking disgust me. You fucking have no idea. The fuck out of here.
Even the 3rd anniversary memorial at Ground Zero didn't silence the conspiracy theorists and provocateurs. People are going to speculate about what happened and why for years. The Protocol's thesis that the Jews clandestinely mastermind world events continues to persist despite all the evidence.
Jeff Levine.
John Dennis Levi.
Alicia Karen Levin.
Neil David Levin.
Look, America changed on September 11th, and some of the cost of that change was those human lives.
At the New York City Medical Examiner's office, I met with the man in charge of identifying the World Trade Center remains. To my surprise, it turned out he was also the cantor at the temple where my children were bar mitzvahed.
They're both, in a sense, service roles. Here as a cantor, I serve my congregation. At the medical examiner's office, we serve the community at large. We have a number of refrigerators like this, carefully inventoried. We know exactly what's here from every one of the unidentified remains so that we can keep working on them. Nothing brings home what's happened, like walking into a mortuary area and seeing 8 tables filled with bits and pieces of what used to be human beings. I mean, you can't hold fragments of a femur bone in your hand and seeing them burnt on one end and shredded on the other end and not realize the catastrophe that's happened here. And you can't turn over a burnt, still smoking piece of clothing with some charred tissue inside of it and a piece of belt on it and a beeper on it, and the beeper is somehow miraculously intact enough to still be working. And you can't realize that this used to be somebody. And then, we hear this nonsense about the Jews did it. No Jews died. You've got to be filled with complete blind hatred and an inability or an unwillingness to see the actual truth. Jews were killed in September 11th. Hundreds and hundreds of Jews were killed. I spoke to their families. I went to memorial services, and I went to the grave of a very good friend of mine who was the assistant cantor of our synagogue, Jeffrey Weiner, who was a Jew and who was killed.
Jeff was a manager of a risk management
group on the 96th floor of the World Trade Center. It was during our first date, actually, that I realized that he was Jewish. I didn't know a lot of Jewish people growing up, and he made some kind of comment. I don't even remember what it was, but he was just like, if that ever happened, my mother, that's it, the Messiah has come. And I was like, the Messiah has come. I'm like, oh, he's Jewish. I remember that before I converted, I asked the rabbi, I said, if something like the Holocaust were to ever happen here, if I didn't convert, would my children be safe? And he said, no, probably not. In Germany, they went back to, if you were as much as a quarter Jewish, that was Jewish enough.
Was your friend Jeff and Heidi's husband, was he ever identified?
Yes, he was. I had a conversation with Heidi sometime after the memorial service in '01. Considering where Jeff worked and how close he must have been to the impact, I told her not to hold out any hope that we would ever find anything. And personally, in my heart of hearts, I never believed that we would find anything. And then in March, we made an identification of a leg bone that was found on the roof of a building about a block and a half away from the first tower. That bone was identified by DNA, and that's what we buried.
Your life has moved forward. How do you, kind of think about these spiritual issues now?
I have to admit that I got a lot less angry when my daughter was born. It's hard. I am still very angry that this wonderful person was taken away from us. I mean, he was everyone's best friend, and he was the nicest person I have ever met.
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, I was fond of saying that they killed some of us and brought out the best in the rest of us. And that was my experience. The people that I worked with came from all over the United States, and the families that I interacted with and tried to help came from every walk of life. And I was hugged by Presbyterians and Muslims and Episcopalians and Jews, and nobody that I interacted with from the families. Not from Japan and Australia and from Great Britain and from Canada and from all across the United States of America. Nobody ever said to me, oh, you're Jewish, well, I don't want you to help me, or I'm not going to work alongside you.
When I converted, they asked me the one thing about Judaism that I wanted to teach my children. And it was the idea of tikkun olam, to heal the world. And I like that aspect of to leave the world in a better place than when you found it.
Is this the first time you've been to the grave of your parents?
No, unfortunately, since other relatives are here, I've been out here a couple of times, and it does kind of make you hope that you're living the right way, so that when you go, people will think good thoughts.
Absolutely. Beloved husband, father, grandfather, who said, God means go do good.
And that was his basic philosophy. Go do good.